Hey guys, it's Danielle with Danielle Gets It Done, and this is part 2 of my natural VBAC birth story.
Gonna love you, honey, on and on and on. I'm a morning dove singing out a song.
If you missed part 1, I will link it above and below. Part 1 was from the beginning to when we arrived at the hospital, and it was very peaceful and positive and zen, and I wish I could say part 2 was the same, but it is not. I have heard that some women have these amazing labors where they do not experience pain, and that was not the case for me. Especially in transition, I felt a lot of pain. But we'll start with arriving at the hospital. This man walked us back to maternity ward, and they got me to our room right away. I was always told that I would need to go to a triage room first to be checked to make sure they were gonna let me stay, but they took me right to the room. I don't know if they could just tell I was in the thick of it, or I know Phil told them that the contractions were every 4 minutes apart for the last hour, so I'm not really sure why they did that, but I really appreciated that. I also didn't know this beforehand, but the room where we checked in, where we labored, where I delivered, and where we were recovered for the next 24 hours was all the same room. They didn't have me move. You know, after the baby was born, most places have you move to another room. And I've heard hospitals of doing that, and I always thought that is so cool. And that's what I got. I didn't even know I was getting that. I think that's so cool. So that was super fun to learn, but my nurse was Jill, and she was amazing. Every person at this hospital was just beyond amazing. And so she checked me, and I was a 3, which was a little disappointing, to be honest. But I think like 100% effaced, or close to 100% effaced. And she, like my doctor had said earlier, like, wow, this baby is really low. So a little disappointed, but I wasn't too disappointed. And she started my IV right away with antibiotics because I was GBS positive, and I wanted 2 doses before we delivered. And I think it took like 20 minutes to get in me. So I had to be hooked up for 20 minutes. And then she capped it off and I could move around. And the other thing she did was put on the monitoring belt. So because I was VBAC, I needed that on all the time, but it was wireless. I didn't even feel it, and it was not a big deal at all. And I had asked later and found out that my contractions were every 3 minutes apart when I arrived at the hospital. So that was awesome. A lot of times if you go to the hospital too early, the adrenaline can kind of slow down your labor. And I think I waited long enough for that not to happen, which was really good because I didn't want any stalls. So we settled into our room. Phil set up my LED candles. He diffused some sacred frankincense for me. I put out my crystals because Phil was way too embarrassed to mess with that. And we kind of just got settled in, and I ate some hummus and crackers. I think that's the last thing I really ate. Maybe I had a granola bar. And Phil was really good about shoving water in my face. Kind of between every contraction, he made me drink a little bit of water. So we kind of just got settled in. And I was still doing okay. 2 really annoying things happened. And the first is the nurse had asked me what felt like 100 questions about my medical history. And the waves and contractions were strong, and I just wanted to focus on them, and I didn't really want to be talking about past surgeries I had. And I was just so annoyed that she didn't already have this information in the system. Like, it wasn't her fault, but I was super annoyed. Looking back, I asked my doctor if I needed to pre-register for the hospital or do anything, and he said don't worry about it. And I wish I wouldn't have listened to him or wouldn't have asked him, because I'm pretty sure if I would have just pre-registered, I wouldn't have had to deal with that. I remember literally saying to her, like, I do not understand the words coming from your mouth right now. Like, I couldn't have a conversation about my medical history. So I just felt bad. Like I felt like I was kind of being rude, but I couldn't do it. The second annoying thing that happened, which on the whole scope, 2 little annoying things isn't that bad, but I was a VBAC candidate, and if you have been following along, I had to meet with an OB prior in my pregnancy to get his blessing, and I had to like sign a consent form that I understood the risks and I was going for a VBAC. Well, I guess that form got lost somehow and the system was down, so they had no way of getting that form. So an OB had to come in the room and go through the whole form with me. She like had to read every single line and had to have me initial it. And again, I was just like, I've already done this. This is stupid. So those were the only like negative things that happened, which again is fine. A couple hours later, I got checked again. I really don't even remember why that happened. If you watched my birth plan video, I didn't want to be checked a lot, but I must have asked for it. Maybe I thought I was farther along than I was. And because my water hadn't broken yet, I was a lot more comfortable with being checked because you have less of a chance of being infected if your water is intact. So Jill checked me and I was a 5. So I thought that's pretty good for going from a 3 to a 5 in a couple hours. And things quickly became a lot more intense. I feel like I say intense all the time. Hypnobabies, which is what I've been using, does not promise an easy and comfortable birth, but they do promise an easier and more comfortable birth. And up to this point, it had been pretty easy and comfortable. And I kind of felt around 5 centimeters that I really started losing control. It was still easier and more comfortable than my first labor, but definitely I'm not one of those people, like I said before, that didn't feel pain. And I just really started feeling it. So James, my first, was sunny side up, and usually when you have a sunny side up baby, you have a lot of back labor, and I didn't with him. And then this baby was in like picture perfect positioning, and I started having back labor, which is really hard. And so all I wanted was for Phil to like rub my back as hard as he could during the contractions, and that helped a lot, just that pressure. And Jill, my nurse, started doing that as well. Phil said she did that for like an hour and a half straight, just stood by me and rubbed my back during the contractions as he was kind of in my face helping me. And she knew I was really into essential oils, so she put together like a massage oil blend with some lavender and was just like rubbing my back for an hour and a half. Like, what a saint. She must have been sore. The next day I was like, why is my back sore? Like, I feel like I got an epidural or something. And it was from all the pressure of Jill and my husband rubbing my back during those hard back contractions. I started contemplating an epidural and whether or not I should get one, because I was in it. And I had a video that I put together called I'm in Labor to put up on YouTube, and the plan was always to put that up when I was more like in transition or pushing. I didn't want to put it up too early in case I had a long labor. And I was only a 5 or so, I thought, at this point, and I told Phil, like, please get that video up. So he texted Aaron Williams to get that up. And the reason I wanted it is because I really was giving up and losing hope, and I just really wanted prayers from people. And I thought, let's get this video up and have my YouTube friends send their prayers and positive thoughts. And I felt it for sure. So we got that up, and Jill had me lay down. She dimmed the lights even more. She kind of hid the monitor from me. She was really good at noticing like I needed a calm room. And she had also noticed that the monitor was kind of distracting to me. So she just said, just listen to your Hypnobabies, lay down. And I did regain control for a little bit. I just was a lot more calm and breathing through the contractions a lot better, and Phil could see the monitor and he's like, Danielle, these are really, really strong contractions and you're doing awesome. So I did gain that sanity back for a little bit, but it quickly went away. But it was nice to have that little break. I got up and I started walking in between the contractions, just pacing the hospital room, and that really also helped to pick them up. So that was good, but I was just starting to get a little delirious. And I think the hardest part about labor is you don't know when it's gonna end. It could have been, she could have been born in an hour, or it could have been 15 more hours. Like, it's just hard that you don't know when it will end. And I was just thinking, you know, I need to be pushing after this, and am I gonna have energy to push? Like, I'm so tired. The contractions were right on top of each other. And I thought, you know, I think I'm feeling really good about getting a vaginal birth. Like, I think I'm far enough along where the epidural wouldn't hurt my chances too bad. I'm like, I think I should get an epidural. Like, I gave it a good try. This is stupid. This pain is stupid. I need an epidural. And Phil was like, well, whatever you want. Like, I'm not going to tell you no, obviously, but I don't want you to be disappointed. Like, are you sure? And I'm like, yep. So I said, call the nurse. And so he pressed the button to call Jill back in, which we later found out didn't work. So we're just waiting and waiting. I'm like, press that button again, get her in here. And he's like, okay, I pressed it. And we're waiting and waiting. And I'm like, I just walked to the door. I was just gonna leave and find someone with an epidural. And Phil's like, Danielle, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, clearly this button that you're pressing is not working. And so I'm gonna go and find me an epidural. And Phil's like, Danielle, you don't have pants on. Like, I'll go find her. Like, I don't care that I don't have pants on. That's the least of my worries right now. So anyways, Jill showed up and I said, Jill, I need an epidural. I need it now. And she was like, okay. Do you want me to just check you real quick first? Because maybe you're, you know, really far along. And I was like, fine. I knew what she was doing, stalling me. So she checked me and I was an 8. So definitely in transition. And that was really awesome. That's the farthest I ever got dilated with James. So I was happy about that. A little baby woke up from a nap. So where was I? She checked me, I was an 8. And she said, okay, like, if you want an epidural, like, I'll go get it, that's fine. But I really don't think you need it. You're doing awesome. And she said, you know, we have laughing gas that you can try, which I, again, didn't know that they offered that. My birth center offered that with James. So I said, okay. And I'm still thinking, like, I know what you're doing. You're just trying to stall me until it's too late. But I thought, okay, like, maybe this will help. So she got the laughing gas set up. I don't know the scientific name. I do not think it helped at all. Phil told me he didn't even think I was doing it correctly, like I wasn't breathing it in. Well, I don't know. I didn't feel any relief from it, but it did stall me from the epidural, and it kind of got my mind off of things. So I think it's a good thing to try if you want to try it. So about an hour into that craziness, and again, they are like every 2 to 3 minutes, probably a minute and a half long. Like, I am in transition and I know it. And I'm thinking, transition is supposed to be quick. It's supposed to be intense and painful and quick. I was expecting like a 15-minute transition, and it just kept going. And I kept thinking, I am so mad I did not get that epidural. I'm so mad at Phil and Jill. I should be taking a nap right now. But my doctor arrived, which I guess was good. It meant things were progressing. And he checked me and I was almost a 10. I was a 9, and just like a lip of my cervix was in the way. And I felt kind of an urge to push, and he said, like, that's fine. I'll just hold, you know, part of the cervix back and you can try to push. And I did that maybe through 2 contractions, and I was like, this feels awkward. It doesn't feel efficient. It doesn't feel good. I don't think I'm supposed to be pushing right now. So back to laboring and waiting for me to become a 10, and it was hard work. I kept saying, this is just stupid. This is stupid. And Jill convinced me to take a bath. Or no, before that, yeah, I was just like, you need to get this baby out to my doctor. I'm like, I don't need that part of my cervix. I'm pretty sure I'll sign something. You can cut it off. Like, we need this baby out. I'm losing control. Like, I was just saying crazy things. And he's like, you know, I'm not going to cut your cervix off. But he said, you know, he was trying to think of solutions. He said, I could break your water if you want. I don't know if it'll help, but it probably will help you dilate to a 10 quicker, more quickly. And I thought about it. I really didn't want him to break my water. I want it to happen naturally, just because with James, I got an infection from my water being broken too early. But probably half an hour went by and I'm like, yeah, let's try it. So he broke my water, and it's just so weird how different it is with each baby. With James, it broke naturally and it was a huge rush. With this, I was like, I don't think it worked. Like, I didn't feel, hear anything. I think maybe she was so low that it was just different. But anyways, he broke my water. He said it worked. I don't know. He left for a little bit more. Jill convinced me to try to take a bath. And I did, but I was in survival mode. Like, the thought of even walking into the bathroom and getting in the bathtub was super overwhelming. But she convinced me that that might help get things going. So I got in the bath, and probably 20 minutes later, I was like, I think I want to push. Like, I feel like pushing. And I actually even felt down there, and I'm like, I think I feel the head. And she's like, okay. So we got up on the bed, and she kind of paged the doctor to come. And so that 9 and a lip to 10 centimeters dilated was an hour. From 8 to 10 was 2 hours. From 9 and a lip was an hour. And so my transition was 2 hours long. And yeah, that was a lot. So we got kind of the bed set up for pushing. She put up this bar across the bed and tied some sheets on it, like ropes for me to like pull onto and kind of go against the contractions during that. And I started doing some practice pushing, and I'm like, I think this is it. Like, this feels good. And my doctor came in. He's like, yeah, you're ready to push. And everyone had told me pushing is so much better than all the rest, and that was so true for me. Like, just waiting to become a 10 and just taking the contractions and trying to stay calm, that's the hard part. With pushing, it's still intense contractions, but you're doing something. Like, I'm pulling on the sheets, I'm pushing as hard as I can, I'm screaming as hard as I can. And honestly, that resistance to the contraction took the pain away. Like, it was a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but I think even if you have an epidural, pushing is a lot of work. Like, you're pushing. But I didn't feel that intense contraction pain. So I'm like, this is awesome. And I always thought it was going to take me a couple hours to push because I've never done it before. But I could kind of tell from his face, like, it wasn't going to be that bad. And they're like, we can see hair, like, this is good. And I'm like, you guys, is a baby gonna come out of my vagina? Like, am I really gonna do this VBAC thing? And my doctor's like, yeah, this baby's coming. And the nurse is like, yeah, like, worst case scenario, I don't think we'll need to, but worst case is a vacuum birth. Like, you're not gonna have a C-section. And Phil told me later, he didn't say it out loud, but when I said, is this baby gonna come out of my vagina? He was down there looking, and he was like, nope, there's no way that baby's gonna come out of your vagina. Like, he didn't understand how it was gonna fit. So I kept pushing, and my doctor was like, you are doing so good. Like, the baby is moving every time you push. And he started kind of rearranging the room, and I think he put on like a different, like a apron or something. I don't know. I could just tell he was getting ready, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna do it, you guys. I'm gonna do it. And then another nurse appeared, and they were like, Danielle, we don't get another person in here unless it's like go time, like this baby's coming soon. And so she was awesome too, and Jill was so great. She had read our birth plan, and she's like, okay, everyone, just a reminder, no one is to announce the gender. Danielle and Phil want to find out on their own. Like, she was just so respectful of everything that I wrote in that birth plan. And I pushed, and they said the head is out, and then I pushed again, and I was just like closing my eyes and pushing as hard as I could, and just kept closing my eyes, and they're like, open your eyes, look down, Danielle. And I opened my eyes, and I looked down, and this person was set on my chest and she was so warm, and Phil said, it's a girl. And I said, of course it's a girl. I said, Norma, you're here. And I just lost it. Like, this is why I wanted a vaginal birth, and why I wanted a VBAC, was for that precious hour, 2 hours afterwards. Like, she was just on my skin and warm and alert, and we were falling in love, and I was just like, thank you to my doctor and my nurse. Like, thank you for letting me do this. I just had so much trauma from my first birth, and I just instantly felt a healing, and I was just so proud that I did it, and I fought for what I wanted, and I worked really hard, and I was fortunate enough to be successful at having a VBAC, and I just kept saying thank you. You know, a lot of doctors won't even do a VBAC, and they won't let you go over 39 weeks, and they won't let you get an epidural, or they won't do it unless you get an epidural. And my doctor just, anything I wanted, like within reason, of course, like, he was just so supportive and let me take control of my labor and my birth and my pregnancy, and I just couldn't be more thrilled. I mean, it was so hard. Even afterwards, I'm like, I'm never doing that again, and if I do, I'm getting an epidural. Like, that was so hard. You know, it's just like after the moment, it's so hard. And even now, it's a couple weeks later, and it was so hard. But I think I would do it again. I think it was worth it not getting an epidural. It was just amazing, and I feel so good. Like, I did tear. I don't have any pain from the tearing, and I just feel great, and I feel energized and happy, and I'm just able to give all my attention to this little newborn instead of, you know, trying to heal my body after intense surgery. So I'm so happy. I hope this is uplifting. If you want a VBAC, you can do it. You just need a supportive midwife or a doctor, a supportive partner, and you have a good chance. You know, 70% of women who go for a VBAC are successful. So those are pretty good odds, and you can do it. And if you want a birth without an epidural, you can do that too. I never wanted to admit this before, but I can now because I've done it. I am a wimp. I do not have a high pain tolerance. Yeah, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So yes, that is the end of little Norma Ione's story, and we just love her, and I'm just thrilled that I have this positive birth story, and we've had a positive start to her life. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and whatever your plans are, I hope you get them done. Bye, guys.